Should nothing of our efforts stand, no legacy survive, unless the Lord does raise the house in vain, its builders strive. To you who boast tomorrow's gain, tell me, what is your life? A mist that vanishes at dawn, all glory be to Christ.
Hello, my name is Pastor Jeremy Kaliba, and I'm the pastor of Church of the Open Bible in Pinoca, Alberta. And it's a joy to be able to be with you as you join us for our podcasts in Proverbs, as we look at a proverb a day. How well did my kids sleep after watching a movie last night? Well, I could say they slept well, or I could communicate it a little more vividly by saying they slept like logs, right? And the image of sleeping logs seems to just fit so well to how my kids respond sometimes to a late movie, like inanimate objects. And comparisons like this are especially helpful when attempting to describe something that might be foreign to whoever you're talking to. What was that experience like? It was like taking candy from a baby. That's how easy it was. Okay, pretty easy then, right? It was like watching grass grow. So pretty dull, right? These are figures of speech. Comparisons like these especially help to communicate and reinforce what is being said. And that's what we find being employed throughout Proverbs, but especially in chapter 4. Our author continues with the main topic we've encountered, and it's the elusive concept of wisdom. But don't worry, the author describes wisdom 3 different ways in this chapter, with 3 different comparisons for us. And that's how important he feels it is for us to understand and grasp. So listen for them as we read through chapter 4. Hear, O sons, a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may gain insight. For I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words. Keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her and she will keep you. Love her and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, and whatever you get insight. Prize her highly and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a graceful garland. She will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I have led you in the paths of uprightness. When you walk, your step will not be hampered, and if you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of the evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on, for they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. My son, be attentive to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Let them not escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart. For they are life to those who find them, and healing to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech, and put devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward. Let your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. Our chapter starts off with the father talking to his son. And we've had this from the beginning of the book, a father teaching his son. But in verse 3, this father uses a different tactic. He says, Let me tell you what my father told me. I was like you once, and this is what your grandfather told me. This is mentoring at its finest, passing down truth to the next generation. And this is what Grandpa told me. Wisdom is like a good wife. Men, how many of you can remember dating, courting, or pursuing your future wife? Those early days. Women, how many of you can remember those initial weeks and months of getting to know your husband? What were they characterized by? I've got embarrassingly incoherent notes and ramblings on my computer from those days. But it didn't take me long after getting to know Britt for me to realize what I had. A pretty special girl. And so, do you know what I did? I went after her. I ignored homework. I planned events we could do with friends. I wrote songs. I wrote poems. If she needed help with the slightest thing, I was there. I spent hours and hours and hours pursuing her. Why? Because she was worth it. And I'm sure I'm not alone. This is what the grandfather had passed down to the father and now to the son. Wisdom is like a good wife. Search for her. Pursue her as you would a good wife. Go after her. Get wisdom. Get understanding. And the end of verse 7, though it cost you all you have, get understanding. And all this points to an important aspect concerning us and God's wisdom. It's not about smarts. Are you smart enough? It's not about the right moment. Are you ready? It's a simple decision. Do you want her? Will you pursue her? Will you commit to going after her? Decide today. And the father continues, but he switches similes in verse 10. Here he tells his son that wisdom is like a clear path. If the first image was about committing to those initial steps and seeking after wisdom, this second image is about walking in wisdom. Wisdom is described as a way or a path in verses 10 to 13. And what is this path like? Well, it's straight. It's even. You won't trip or stumble. Verse 18 tells us that it's well lit. And then the Father describes the path of wickedness, the path of those who trust in themselves, not in God. And that path is filled with violence, stumbling, darkness. The darkest place I've ever had to walk was in a cave. Not a guided cave, a crawl into a hole on the side of a mountain cave. And once you got far enough in, there's just no light, not a stitch of light. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Even with our headlamps on, climbing in the cave was exhausting, not because it was steep or long, but because with each step you were looking down, always feeling with your hands and feet, always watching out for a slippery rock, a sharp edge, something that could roll your ankle like that or cut into your shin in a moment. A dark path is treacherous. And so the Father says, wisdom is like a clear path. It's a step-by-step journey. It's slow and steady, though it may not seem like it. So guard your step. Be diligent in keeping to the path so you don't get lost. Walk in wisdom. Wisdom is like a good wife, a clear path, and a healthy body. This is in verses 20 and on. The Father's final comparison is that wisdom is like a healthy body, and he begins with receptive or incoming organs, like ears in verse 20. Listen. Eyes in verse 21. Do not let them out of your sight. And then the heart in verse 21 again. Keep them within your heart. Then he pivots to active or outgoing organs. Mouth and lips for speaking, eyes and pupils for keeping directions, and feet for walking. I think this direction is important for us to understand what he's telling the Son to do. If we look again at chapter 4, verse 23, he says, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. This is a great verse, and I've used it often, but typically in the sense that I need to fortify my heart, to protect it from things without. Set up a moat so that nothing will compromise my heart, nothing will come into it. But I'm not sure if that's what the Father is really going for. See, the Father wants the Son to listen to his words, not to let them out of his sight and to keep them within his heart. It's less about guarding to keep something out and more about guarding to keep something in. It's more about protecting the treasure in his heart, because out of that will come his actions. I think there is a tendency for us as believers to define ourselves by what we don't do, by what we abstain from, the shall nots, so to speak. Sometimes perception is placed on this, but it's often reinforced by us. Oh, she's the gal that doesn't smoke, or he's the guy that doesn't swear, or they're the ones that don't drink. They don't, ... fill in the blank. But listen, we should not primarily be marked by what we're against, but by what we're for. Not by what we despise, but by what we treasure. And what we need to treasure, what we need to guard in our hearts is God's wisdom, his word. So invest in wisdom, treasure his word, store it up, listen to it, place it before your eyes, and keep it in your heart. And then that will come out. That's a healthy body. I know I'm speaking to the choir here because you're listening to a podcast on Proverbs, on Scripture. We find that wisdom in this proverb, wisdom is like a good wife. You've got to seek after her. You've got to decide today that she's worth it and go after her. Maybe you've made that decision. Well, then for you, wisdom is like a clear path. Walk in it. Stay on it. Life is made up of little decisions, little steps, daily steps, deciding time and time again to rely on God, to depend on him. Is your walk in wisdom regular? Is it weekly, like today, or daily? Is it consistent? Do you have people around to help you? Have you sought someone to act as a spiritual father or mother to speak wisdom into your life? Walk in wisdom. A body that lastly, maybe you're staying on the path, and wisdom is like that healthy body, a body that lives from the heart out. So what do you treasure? Are you investing and reinvesting in God's wisdom? May that be so as we trust in God's Holy Spirit to work within us. Go in peace.